each dollar that we have performing multiple functions. How do I start saving for my first real estate investment? How do I save for my first business? One of the things that you can do with a life insurance policy is you can accelerate the death benefit to utilize for medical treatment. But right now, people are kind of looking around like, holy what life insurance does when you use it as a savings alternative is it solves a lot of different problems for you in your life. It solves a lot of needs and wants that people have, and it provides certainty in an uncertain world. If you make a bad investment in a stock, the worst that happens is you lose some money. You put 10 grand into an investment, or put 100 grand into an investment, and that maybe that investment goes down to 50 grand or something like that. So you lost 50 grand. In real estate, you put it in, you have to have a buffer. You have to have capital to make sure that should something go poorly, you can put money back into that property, right? Like you may have to fix some things. So liquidity is important. And so coming back to the insurance question that you had, I'm a big fan of the fact that the financial efficiency is super important, right? Mm-hmm. And what I mean by financial efficiency is we have to get each dollar that we have performing multiple functions, right? Because most of the time in personal finance, we're thinking, all right, how do I save money in an emergency fund? How do I start saving for my first real estate investment? How do I save for my first business? How do I start investing for my future? How do I have a family, I need life insurance. I need to think about, okay, I'm going to get old and unhealthy at some point in time. I might need long-term care. What about disability insurance? What about like all these things that just come up in life, right? Like what happens if I get sick? What happens if I get cancer? I'm somebody that wants to have control of my own medical directive. I will not do chemo and radiation and all that stuff the way that traditional, doctors would have me do. And so, but at the end of the day, that's what traditional health insurance companies are going to do. They're going to make you follow that route. They're going to be like, all right,
of course,
you got cancer. You're doing chemo and radiation. Boom. That's your only path.
And otherwise, it's going to cost you $250,000.
Otherwise, you're dead. And if you want to do alternative treatments, which by the way, just a little story, my father-in-law, November 4th, 2020, was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. He went into he was playing pickleball. He twisted his ankle. Went to the ER just to get his ankle checked out. They did a scan. They turned out that he had a blood clot. It wasn't a twisted ankle. Had a blood clot that ran from his ankle to his groin. When they scanned the blood clot in his groin, they found a mass on his pancreas. And it was a 7-centimeter tumor that spread from his pancreas to his liver.
Oh, wow.
And it had already metastasized, and the doctors gave him 90 days to live. We went to the oncologist. The oncologist said, we may be able to get you to 6 months to a year, but your quality of life is going to be crap.
It's going to be shit.
And so he basically, in the hospital room, was like, no, this is it. Let me start getting my affairs in order. It's going to be what it's going to be. Yeah. My wife and I were like, screw that. Like, it's not who we are. We don't go down without a fight. Because we had access to capital. And one of the things that you can do with a life insurance policy is you can accelerate the death benefit to utilize for medical treatment. Most people don't realize that. And so we have policies that I have dedicated just for like an emergency medical plan. So I can control my medical directive, right? And it's way cheaper than a high deductible medical plan, And so
this is through life insurance.
This is through life insurance, exactly. So most people, I always say it's called life insurance because you're supposed to use it while you're alive. It's not just death insurance,
Yeah.
And the thing is that I'll tell you this: if you know anything about pancreatic cancer, it is the killer of killers of cancer. My father-in-law, at 76 years old, when he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, is still alive today, almost 3 years later, playing golf 4 days a week, hanging out with his grandkids, doing all that stuff. Because we were able to do alternative treatments. And even to this day, his oncologist is like, how the hell am I seeing you every single month on your checkups? Yeah. Like, it makes no sense to anybody. But because we approach things from a different perspective and we had finances set up differently, he was able to have control and handle his medical treatment differently. So when I talk about financial efficiency, I'm talking about you have to think long-term. We have to be thinking long-term. And so life insurance is an amazing savings alternative. I think the bad rap that life insurance gets is people compare it to an investment. If you look at a life insurance return long-term and you look at the investment side of it, you're going to be like, that's pathetic, right? But if you look at a life insurance policy and you say, what is the role of this money? It's safe, liquid, guaranteed, accessible capital that's going to give me additional benefits. And you think, all right, do I need an emergency fund? Sure. Do I want to have dry powder in case of an opportunity that I can find, that I want to deploy, that I can leverage safely with no risk? I'd love that, right? Like to entrepreneurs and real estate investors, that concept is gold. To people that are not that, it makes no sense. You're like, why would I want that? Like, it's more dangerous than it is positive, right?
Yeah.
But if that's your skill set and you are looking for opportunities, you need to align your money with your values and beliefs and your skills, right? And so that's where life insurance comes in, right? And that it's not for your W-2 employee. It can be for an emergency fund, but like for people that are entrepreneurial and real estate investment mindseted, it's like, for me, we flow like pretty much everything through there. Like this project that we're doing in the Dominican right now, that would have never happened had we not had access to capital through a life insurance policy. Period. Yeah. Right?
And how many reps you has? I know you have a certain amount.
Yeah.
Of reps.
So man, we started our agency in January 2022, and we're up to over 400 agents now across the country.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's growing a lot. We got just over 400 in 48 states now. Like it's expanding a lot. We got 5 to 10 people joining us every single week now, and it's growing because like it's the fact is people know now. Well, let me put it this way. 7 years ago, the idea of safe money wasn't as appealing, right? Because the market was going crazy, crypto craze was going on, and like it was nuts, right? But right now, people are kind of looking around like, holy shit, what's next year going to look like? There's so much uncertainty, and what life insurance does when you use it as a savings alternative is it solves a lot of different problems for you in your life, and it solves a lot of needs and wants that people have, and it provides certainty in an uncertain world, and that's what these companies do.
Awesome, that's great. And so talk to us a little bit about what you got going on in Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
I know you have a retreat center there.
Yeah.
Where exactly in the DR is it?
Yeah, it's in Samana. So in the Samana Peninsula. If you look at the north side of the island or in the country of the Dominican Republic, because Haiti's on the other side of it, right? But if you look at the island, on the northeast side of the island, there's a peninsula called Samana. And if you look at the top side of the peninsula, it looks like a bit of an alligator. The end of the island looks like an alligator head. So at the base of the alligator's neck, there's this little bay that's like 1.5 kilometers long. And we're right in that little valley, and it's just like this magical place on earth that we found. I found it through relationships. I always kind of tell people the more you save, the more liquid, accessible capital you have, the more opportunity sems to have a way of tracking you down.
Well, that's one. I can say this, from personal experience and being an entrepreneur now for over a decade. Mm-hmm. That even though there are a lot of people that say no, you don't have liquid cash,
mm-hmm.
You should be investing everything you have and all that stuff. You have to have some kind of liquidity, because when that opportunity does come, mm-hmm. you have to have that cash on hand to be able to do it, right? Because at the end of the day, either you have the cash on hand or you have to get a loan to have that, the capital, right? So you have to get that loan. And being a real estate investor myself and owning things not only in this country but other countries as well, you do come to realize it's like, okay, either I have to use my own cash or I got to get a loan right? And I've learned, and I think everybody knows, one of the basic rules is whenever you're investing, never use your own money.
Right. Yeah.
You always try to use someone else's money.
Sure. Totally.
So that, I think that's a foundational rule that everybody should always follow, right? Whatever you have, you always have it there for that emergency fund. Totally. And you have it there, and then you can borrow against it or borrow something to that and have a collateral for it, But at least you're not using that money if you do need to pull it for whatever reason in case something does happen. Yeah. It's there.
Well, I mean, you just hit the nail on the head. Like, so I've been doing this for 15 years now, since 2009, so almost 15 years. And, what I can say is that my journey has been pretty crazy, but I've grown a lot, right? We've had a lot of experiences. We've had a lot of wins. We've had some losses. You learn more in the losses than you do the wins, obviously. And those losses, as painful as they are, they forge who you are. And because of those losses, it's created opportunity because of what we've learned in those losses, and how we've grown and how we've been still diligent about forging forward and just moving forward and growing. And what happened for me, and this is kind of how the Dominican project happened, I never thought I was going to be an international real estate investor. Like, I wasn't looking to be, in fact. The problem is, or I guess the blessing is, I was looking for opportunities in the United States, and I couldn't find anything that I liked because the market's bubbled up. The mortgage rates are crazy.
Real estate here is
nothing makes any sense, right? And so
You got to be in the game already,
Right.
Because now getting properties now with the interest rates at 8% and the properties, the inflation, the properties are through the roof on top of their 8% interest rates. Yeah.
And so I was looking to deploy money here, but then it was just like there was nothing. And so then somebody brought it to my attention, like, hey, would you be interested in the Dominican? I was like, I'm always open to looking at anything. Yeah. And so then as we vetted it out.
That's when we started talking.
Right. Yeah. And so as I was vetting it out, you start to realize, and I went down and checked it out. My wife and I invested in some properties down there just personally. Mm-hmm. And as we kept going back and forth, as I kept talking to people, this is where over the 15 years of growth, and through all the things that I've learned, it just came to our attention, and through some coaching and through some guidance of other people, they were like, Chris, you need to launch a private equity fund, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I didn't even know where to start. But because of the growth that I'd had and the network that I'd built, right? I had people there that were able to coach me and guide me on, and I had all the legal backing and all the things that I needed to launch a private equity fund, which, by the way, is a pain in the butt, right? But we've got it done, and now that's what we're leveraging and utilizing to actually have international investment opportunity with the protection of the United States regulation, right? Because that's the challenge. The first time my wife and I sent money down to the Dominican, I remember sending 6 figures. When you write a check or you wire a check, down to a foreign country,
and it goes missing for a week.
And it goes missing. Try 40 days, bro. 40 days it got held up.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. That makes you pucker 40 a little bit.
So usually when you wire an international wire, right? The way that it usually works is you have to have an accountant on that end. You have to have someone who knows how to get the approval first.
Yeah.
Because all those countries are notorious for money laundering. Yeah. So what happens is let's say you have your business set up. For example, in Colombia, you have like a SAS. It's kind of like an LLC over here, right? You have that set up. So you have your lawyer, and then you have your accountant has to go into the bank and has to get filled out a certain amount of documentation for an approval so that you can send this money and wire this money from the United States to that country, right? That approval is pretty much telling the country, okay, I'm sending money from the United States from this business to this business, and it's for this venture, right? So like, for example, if you're sending $50,000 or let's say 6 figures, right? 100 grand, you have to show some kind of proof that 100 grand is going to go towards the property that you're buying or whatever it may be. Yep. So once they get the approval, you send the money. Once you send the money, and this is another big thing too, what a lot of people don't realize, and I learned over the years, where when you send the money, you either send it in dollars or you send it in that currency that the country. What I learned was that first you have to have the accountant go in, he gets the approval, you wire the funds. When you wire the funds, there's 2 ways to do it. You either wire the funds in that currency or you wire the funds in dollars. Now, if you wire the funds in that currency, okay, depending on how the dollar is when you wire the funds.
That's tough, man.
Yeah.
Totally.
So understand this, right? So let's just say you have the Dominican currency.
Yeah.
Okay. For every dollar, it's a certain amount of, it's 1,000 something Dominican currency. Same thing with Colombia, right? So you have less Colombian pesos. So the national currency would be, let's just say right now it's at 4,000 Colombian pesos to every $1.
Yeah.
So if I send it in Colombian pesos, they're going to take and change it the moment that I get that money and let's say wire it.
Yep.
So let's just say it takes about a week to get there.
Yep.
Right? Well, those currencies are very volatile.
Hugely.
So they go up and down all the time.
Yeah.
So what happens is that when it gets there, okay, you decided that you wanted to take that currency or change the rate of the dollar when you did the wire. But when it lands in that country and you have to have your accountant go back in, okay, he's got to go back to the bank, check it. Okay, we found the money. Now, because it's almost like it's in limbo for
my gosh.
For like a week. So when they find the money, then they're like, okay, we found it, and this is how much you decided when you sent that money that the currency was. But guess what? The currency is no longer at that anymore. The currency now, the dollar has more value than when you sent it, because obviously it goes up and down.
Yeah.
So you just lost.
Yeah.
You lost. Let's just say if it's 4,000 and it went up to 4,800, you just lost $5,000 or $6,000. You just lost $7,000 or $8,000.
Yeah,
or more.
It could be crazy.
It's nuts. So what you have to do, and I learned this, right, is you send it in dollar, right, from here to there. When it gets there, and they approve it, and your account goes in, he clears the money, then there they change it that day from whatever that currency is, from the dollar to whatever. That's a little secret.
Little hack.
Little hack that I lost like 10 racks in. So.
Yeah. So and because what happened, and it could go the other way. It could go the other way.
It could go the other way too. So it could go. Yeah, it could go to where now I sent it in dollars over there, right? But when I sent it, the dollar was at 48.
But you're not doing this project down there to do forex trading, right? Like you're sending that money down for real estate. You don't need to inject forex risk into the equation, right? Like that's the idea.
But it's one of these things.
Right.
These things, because what happens is if you don't know, right? That's what happened to me.
Yeah.
The money comes on the other end, and when it gets into the bank, you look at the bank and you're like, well, but I sent 50,000, and now I have only 43,000.
Yeah, it sucks.
So you're like, how?
That's brutal.
Because you're gonna look at, because when you look at that money, you're not looking at it anymore at the dollars anymore. You're looking at the value of what that country's currency is.
Yep.
Okay, and
it fluctuates.
A ton. So when you say, okay, now it's, let's say $100,000 would be 200 million Colombian pesos, right? Yeah. So at the 200 million Colombian pesos, when I sent it was 50, but now 200 million Colombian pesos is only worth 43,000.
Yeah.
And that's the problem that you find.
Well, that happened to me. Like I didn't have any money in limbo, but I was just, I'm always going in and out of the Dominican Republic, for this project. Yeah. And I was there for 4 days this last trip. I got to Miami last night. So I was there for 4 days over the weekend. And the Dominican Republic peso went from 54 per dollar to 59 per dollar in 4 days.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
That's like a 10%.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. That's huge.
That's a swing, bro.
That's huge. That's huge. That's huge.
So
from that's big. Usually it varies.
Yeah,
1,000 to 3,000.
That was one of the biggest swings that I've seen in the year and 15 months that I've been going down there. And that kind of stuff is important to understand. But like my belief overall though is like I love the international thing. I know you do too. Yeah. We've looked at Colombia as well. We've spent a lot of time in Colombia this year. You have as well. We settled on the Dominican because that's just where our relationships came up. That's where the opportunity presented itself. I've got a local contact there that basically is like the godfather of the area. Yeah. He runs the area.
This is the thing
it's
about
all relationship driven.
Yeah, exactly.